Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video on the how to make a Pet Simulator X style game series. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to save the areas that we bought and the player's pets and the player's coins and gems. Also, if you guys want to support me and want to have access to all of the project files, including the one you're watching right now, they will all be available on my Patreon in the $10 tier. So when recording this video, I realized that I did not show the interface of creating attributes. So here's how attributes work when you create. So here's my instance. I have a part selected. If I scroll down and click add attribute, it will tell me to give my attribute a name. So for example, test, and it will tell me to select the type. So string or boolean. I'm just going to say boolean, and if I press save, your attributes should pop up here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to server script service, and I'm going to create a new script, and I'm going to call it data save. Now I'm going to remove the print hello world. I'm going to get some services. So local players is equal to game get service players. And then we need data store service. So local data store service is equal to game get service data store service. And then I'm going to create a reference to server storage, so local server, or maybe actually we don't really need that. I think I'm just going to create a data store, so local data store is equal to data store service get data store, and I'm just going to give it a key. So create a random key. For me, I'm just going to say my data store key, and in here we are going to get the player data, so local player data is equal to, and I think we have the folder inside of the main server script, but I think what I'm going to do is just drag it inside of the data saver, and that should work. So local player data is equal to script.playerData, and what I'm going to do to prevent this from erroring is I'm going to enter the main server script, and in here I'm going to just comment this out, or maybe just delete it, but I think I'm just going to comment it. So toggle comment, and I'm going to go back to my data saver, so player data, and I'm going to create a function for save data, so local function save data, and that's of course going to take the player as the first argument, and another function for load data, so local function, and I think I'm going to call it load data, so load data, and that's also going to take the player. And then I'm going to have a function player removing, so player removing, and that's also going to take the player. And then I'm going to create the events, so players.playerAdded connect function load data. So whenever a new player is added, we're going to call the load data function, and whenever a new player left, so whenever player removing, so whenever a player leaves the game, connect, we're going to call the player removing function. Okay, so after calling those two functions, sometimes when you are the last player in the server and you leave the game, the server might shut down before your data gets saved. So what I'm going to do is game bind to close function, and what I'm going to do is loop through every single player in the game. So for underscore player in pairs, players get players get players do. I think I added an extra parenthesis. Now this gets called whenever you shut down all servers or just something like that happens. Then we're gonna call that function, and coroutine.wrap save data player. And after doing that, what I'm gonna do is inside of the player moving function, I'm going to call the save data function. So save data player. So whenever a player leaves the game, we are calling the player removing function, and we are gonna call the save data function. Now, after doing that, what I'm gonna do is go back to my save data function, and in here I'm going to create a table. So a table called data, and inside of that data table, it's gonna be empty, and I'm going to loop through every single folder in the player. So for underscore comma folder in pairs player colon get children do. And what I'm gonna do is check if player data colon find first child folder dot name. Then, so what we're doing here is basically just checking if the player data folder has this folder inside of it. So if it does, then what we're gonna do is check if the folder from the player data has this attribute called save children and is equal to true. So what I'm gonna do is, okay, I'm gonna explain what this does. So if any of these folders have this attribute called save children, if it's true, then we are gonna save everything that's inside of that folder. If it is false, then we're not gonna do that. So for example, for our pets folder, I'm gonna add an attribute, and it's going to be a boolean, and I'm going to call it save children. Now I do want the children from the pets folder to be saved, so all of our pets will be saved. So I'm gonna do that, and then after doing that, I'm going to go back to the script, and what I'm gonna do is, so data folder dot name is equal to an empty table. So we are creating another table inside of that table, and what I'm gonna do is check if player data folder dot name calling it attribute save children values. So if that folder, if you want to save the values of the children inside of a certain folder, for example, our leader stats, so we want it to save the coins and gems, but we also want it to save the children values. So what I'm gonna do is just go to my leader stats, and I'm going to add an attribute, and it's going to be a boolean again, and save children values. Now I'm going to make sure that this is checked, because we do want to save our coins and gems. And let's say you have a currency that you don't want to save. Actually, we're going to get to that later. So now what I'm going to do is for underscore comma child in pairs folder colon get children do. So we are looping through all of the children inside of that folder. Then we're going to check if not child colon get attribute do not save value then. So maybe you want some values to save but some values to not save. So for example, I want my sent2 value to not save. Then I'm gonna add a string value, and I'm going a string attribute, and I'm going to call it do not save value. However, we don't this is only going to work if the values folder has the boolean called save children and it's set to true. So we're gonna save all of the children inside of the folder. So if this happens, we are gonna save all of the children in the folder, but we're not gonna save the value of this sent2 value, because it has this attribute called do not save value. And this is also only going to work if we also have these save children values, and it's going to be a boolean again. So if we want to save the children values, we're going to do that, and we are also going to save the children, but we're not going to save the value of the sent2 value. So I'm going to get rid of this. I want both of these to be false, and I'm also going to remove this attribute. Now what I'm gonna do is table.insert. So table.insert and data square brackets folder.name comma a table child.name comma child.value comma child.class name. Okay, so we are adding a table inside of the table that we just added. So this table right here, we are adding another table inside of it, and that table will contain the properties of the child. So the child name, the child value, and the child class name. Now we're gonna see why this is useful, why we're gonna use the class name later. So what I'm gonna do after that, in here, I'm just going to put an else right here. So if we don't have the save children values, then what I'm gonna do is we're gonna do that again. So for underscore comma child in pairs, this colon get children do. And what we're gonna do is again check if it doesn't have the do not save value string or attribute. And what we're gonna do this time is just table.insert data square brackets folder.name and child.name and child.class name. So we are not saving the value. So if we are saving the children values, then we are gonna add the value of the child to the table. If we are not doing that, then well, we're not gonna save the child value. We're only saving the child name and the child class name. This is getting kind of confusing for me to explain, and I'm really bad at explaining, so sorry about that. Now what I'm gonna do is after this big for loop right here, I'm going to go down and local success comma error msg. So error message is equal to pcall function and data store. So the data store that we created right here, colon save async. So we are saving the data. Colon save set async. Sorry. Player.userid comma actually player.userid dot key. Now if you want a key for this, I'm gonna add it. It's optional, but I do want to have a key, and we are gonna save the data table. So data. Now what I'm gonna do is check if success then, and we're gonna print saved data, else we are going to warn the error msg. Now what this is doing is basically, if saving the data was a success, then we are going to, well, print saved data. If it's not, then it's not going to error this and break the whole script. It's just going to warn us that it didn't work, and it's going to tell us what we did wrong. Now what I'm going to do is go back. I'm going to go to the load data function, and what I'm going to do is loop through. So for underscore comma v in pairs player data colon get children do, and we are going to take every single folder and value inside of the player data and clone it and parent it to the player. So v colon clone dot parent is equal to player. So we are cloning it, then parenting it to the player. After that, local data. This is just going to be this is going to be set to nil. So again, local success comma error msg is equal to pcall function, and data is equal to, and data store colon get async this time, not set async, get async, player.userid dot key comma, actually we don't need the comma. So what we are doing in here is setting async, and in here we're gonna get the data that we saved. So as you can see in here, we saved the data, and the key that we gave it is the player.userid dot key. And in here, we have an empty variable called data. It's set to nil. And in here, we are setting that data to the data that we saved earlier. Now, again, we are doing the p call for the same reason, so that it does not error and break the entire script. Now, what I'm going to do is check if error msg, then, so if it errors, then we are going to kick the player. So player colon kick. And we are just going to say, couldn't save data. Couldn't save data, or just, okay, could not save data. Now, the reason why we are kicking the player is so that, for example, the player is going to, so the player already played the game and grinded and got 1,000 coins. So if he leaves the game and rejoins, and those 1,000 coins weren't able to load, if he plays the game and leaves again, it's going to save 0 coins. So if we could not load the data, then we are just going to kick the player. But before we do that, I'm also going to warn the error message. Okay, so after that, I'm going to check if the data is equal to something. So if data, then, and I'm going to loop through the data, and I'm going to check if hashtag v is greater than 0, then what we're going to do is for x comma c, now I'll explain what this does later, in pairs v do, and what we're going to do is check if player to strings I colon find first child c square brackets 1. Now this is going to be hard for me to explain, so I'm just going to do that later. So if that, then we're going to do this, else we are going to create a new value. So local value is equal to instance.new, and it's going to be toString c square brackets 3. By the way, this is the class name that we just saved. And value.name is equal to c square brackets 1. And value is equal to c square brackets 2. And value.parent is equal to player square brackets to string I. Okay, so now it's time for me to explain what this does. Now, if v is greater than 0, this is basically the folder inside of the data, because if you remember, inside of the data table, we created a folder, a table for the folder that we saved. And basically, v in here means the folder that we saved. So we are checking if how much stuff is in the folder is greater than 0. So if there is nothing in the folder, then we're not gonna do anything. We're not gonna do all of this. But if there is, then we are doing from x for x comma c. Now x is the index. I renamed it to x because I is already used here. And c is basically the, okay, so c is this. It's this table that we saved in here. I don't know if this makes sense, but so c is the value that we saved. So c1 is the value's name, so child.name, and c2 is the child's value, so child.value. And in here, when we are creating the value, c3 is of course the class name, and c1 is the name, and c2 is the value, and toString I is basically the name of the folder. Okay, so now I'm gonna test this out and see if it works. So what I'm gonna do is, so we want to save the pets and the leader stats values. I'm also going to have the save children bool value. So save children boolean true. Okay, so now I'm going to see if this works. So before testing this out on Studio, you're gonna go to game settings and security and enable Studio access to API services. Now if you play the game, that should hopefully work. So we have 1,500 coins and 1,000 gems. I'm going to get a pet. So I'm just going to hatch this pet. And I'm going to change my coins and gems value. So coins will be maybe 1,123. And for the gems, I'll have it set to 542. So remember these two values. Now I'm going to leave the game and see if this works. So it's printed saved the data. Now we are going to see if it will load the data. Okay, so it couldn't load the data, so we are going to check why this is happening. Okay, so I found a fix. All I did is check if c square brackets 3 is equal to nil, then value is equal to instance.new to string c2, else value is equal to instance.new to string c3. Now the reason why is because if we don't have the save children values attribute set to true, then c3 is not a thing because there is nothing in the third index. So I basically just checked if c3 is equal to nil, then c2, if not, then c3. So this I think works. So if I join the game, I should have a cat saved. And if I just go ahead and modify my coins and gems values, so leader stats, coins and gems, coins 323, coins, okay, so coins for 464, and then I'm going to stop the game and play it again, and it should save everything. So as you can see, I have 464 coins and 323 gems. Okay, so I just found a bug with the system. So if you hatched, for example, 2 cats, it will only load 1 cat. And the reason why is because in here we are checking if the value is already there, then we are just updating its value. So what I'm gonna do is just get rid of these 3 lines of code right here and get rid of the end in here. I'm going to go to format document, and now everything should work just fine. So I'm going to play the game. And I'm just going to hatch 2 cats. So here's the first one. I'm gonna wait for this animation to play, and I'm gonna hatch the second one. Okay, so now I have 2 cats and 1,480 coins, and I'm going to leave and rejoin. And now we have 1,480 coins, and we also have 2 cats. Now what I'm going to do is show you how to load the cats into your inventory. So just enter the eggs client local script. So just go to star player scripts and enter eggs client. And I'm just going to loop through. So for underscore comma v in pairs player dot pets get children do, and create template v dot name. And I'm also just going to wrap this in the coroutine. So coroutine dot wrap, and it's just going to take the function. So create template comma v dot name. Okay, so just do this, and also make sure to add a wait in here. So that's dot wait 5 seconds. And if you play the game now, we should have 2 cats and 2 cats loaded onto our inventory. So if I wait a bit, they should load, and now we can equip them. Oh, we can't equip them. Okay, that's a problem we're gonna have to fix. Okay, so it says attempt to index nil with clear all children. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and try to fix that. Okay, so I just found out why, and it was very simple. Just copy this, copy these lines of code right here that we commented, and go back to your data save script, and just paste them here, and remove the comment. So just local folder is equal to that, and dot parent is equal to workspace dot main folder underscore workspace dot player pets, and that should work. Now if I play the game, I should be able to equip my pets. I'm just going to open up the pets inventory, and I'm going to equip a pet, and as you can see, it works, and both of them should work. Okay, so they both work. Now what I'm going to do is show you how to save the areas. So if I go to my areas, I added an attribute, save children, and it's set to true. But if you play the game, it still says purchase, and we still have to buy it. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so it did save it. Now I'm going to leave the game, rejoin, and we do have the area that we just bought, but if I go here, then nothing happens. So it says interact. So what I'm gonna do is in the main server script, we're gonna go down, and whenever we want to purchase a door, instead of doing this, all we have to do is check if player. So we need a way to get the player. So what I'm gonna do is just go back here and create a player added event in here. And I'm just going to delete this. And what I'm gonna do is just check if player. Okay. I'm going to loop through every single door. And what I'm gonna do is check if player dot areas find first child door dot name. I'm gonna go back and see if. Okay, so area 1, that should work. Door dot name. Then I'm just going to fire a remote event. So remote, we should have a purchase door remote function. So I'm gonna see how this works. So in here, when we purchase the door, where is it? Purchase door fire client. Okay. All I'm gonna do is I'm going to add the remote event, and I'm going to call it destroy door or remove door. So remotes replicated storage. Where is it? Replicated storage. So game.replicated storage.remotes .remove door fire client, and it's going to take the player. Now what I'm gonna do is go back to my main client script, and right here where it says, okay, so I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna do remote dot purchase door or dot remove door dot client event connect function, and I'm just going to take the door destroy. Now I'm going to go back to my main server, and I forgot to send the door itself. Okay, so now this should work. If you play the game and you own a door, it should destroy itself. Oh, I forgot to do something. We have to wait a couple of seconds before doing that. Maybe 5 seconds. So if I join the game, after a couple of seconds, the door gets destroyed, and I can go through it without having to buy the door again. Okay, so I think this is going to be it for today's tutorial. If this helped, make sure to subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!